Hey, here we go. Let's zoom in on my shirt.
Okay, hold the mic so people can hear you talk about it.
All right. I got my headset on. Hey, everybody, welcome to Conant Show. And I gotta try to figure this out here because it's in reverse. All right, very good. All right, I'm wearing a shirt here, and this is my Homeland Security shirt, and it's shows some famous Native Americans. You can zoom in on it for a second. People might even be able to see who they are. I think Sitting Bull is one of them. Geronimo might be another one of them. These are some famous Apaches here, I think. And aren't they just handsome people? I mean, just look at these far out faces, and such a great photograph, even if it is on a T-shirt. That's Geronimo there, and if we zoom out a little tiny bit, we can see the slogan here is Homeland Security, fighting terrorism since 1492. This is my favorite shirt to wear when I'm going through the airport. They always get real excited when I wear this shirt. And welcome to the Conant Show. It's Wednesday night. We had a little bit of kerfuffle surrounding the mixing board with an echo. And today is the 19th of April. And yeah, I'm just sitting here at the board with the headset on. I don't think I need the headset anymore. And we got a good signal. Very good. All right. So then, tonight, I'm thinking of a couple of things. You know, short on guests again, so that's okay. I don't always have to have a guest. A lot of people are sick lately, folks. There seems to be some kind of a bronchial infection going around, or a lung infection going around, that it's laid up a couple of friends of mine, and I've got a couple of people who want to come on the show, but they're just still not feeling right. They're not feeling good. And I have a show coming up. It'll be about acupuncture, and I'll be putting together a panel discussion on UFOs at some point. Other topics of interest are toxic electricity, Wi-Fi, and the Second Amendment. And it seems to be a real interesting mix of and match of ideas here. But most importantly, you know, I started with this T-shirt, you know, with my favorite T-shirt here about Homeland Security fighting terrorism since 1492, because we're in a technological conundrum. You know, we're moving really fast, folks, really fast into the future, and we have to really start questioning authority as to the decisions that are being made that impact our lives in very serious ways. And you know, depopulation is something that I encountered in 2004 when I bought my first computer and got online for the first time and discovered the internet and the Yahoo search engine. And what I put in on that first day playing with my new computer without any virus protection or anything, boy, did I ever have problems in fairly short order. I had no idea about anything in those days. Anyway, I put in 3 words, and the 3 words were economic, ecologic, sustainability. Those 3 words. Because I was thinking, well, you know, what's the Yahoo search engine going to give me on those 3 words? And boy, oh boy, did it ever cough up something real interesting. On the first hit, I was brought to the what they call white papers or policy papers of the United Nations, and it was about economic and ecologic sustainability and the agenda and plans for the future. And the premise was very, very simple and clear, and that is that all of the Earth's problems can be solved by less people. And the document went on for some pages about how using any means available, war, designer diseases, environmental catastrophe, anything at all to kill people is a good idea and should be used. And when I was reading this stuff, I practically had to put my eyeballs back into my skull and scrape my jaw off the floor. This is policy, folks. It's already been decided that the solution to our problems is to kill us all. At least vast numbers of us. I don't know, 6.8 billion people out of 7.5 billion people, something of this nature, 85-90%. I mean, this is genocide, no matter how you cut it. And given that we have the potential for thermonuclear war now, with the saber rattling going on between various nations like North Korea and Russia and China and the United States and Japan and whoever else is interested, we find ourselves really facing some serious challenges to rein in our leaders and dress them down with some sobriety. This business of being drunk on power is a bad combination when you have, the kind of nuclear weaponry that can destroy our planet 50 times over, and we're still not done using the nukes. So, that's one thing that's kind of on my mind. And the other thing is a very big topic, and if you go to the CIA homepage, you will find quite an interesting treatise on the CIA's own homepage about geoengineering that they are taking a personal interest. The CIA director is taking a personal interest in geoengineering and to spray something in the atmosphere to mitigate the catastrophic global warming that's really not going on, but they're telling us that it is. And if you've followed any of my shows recently, you'll have encountered the concept of chemtrails, and my photographic work documenting chemtrails and this sort of thing. And this is part of a broader concept of not exactly invisible weapons, but it's in that family or class of weapons that are not obvious. Okay, it's like secret, hidden weapons right in front of you, and anybody who's older than, say, 35 or 40 years old can remember what a contrail behind a jet engine up in the sky really looks like. They do not leave a white fuzzy trail from horizon to horizon over your head. That's not what a contrail is. It is something else. And the inoculation of our atmosphere with these particulates that have been, many researchers out there have gotten ground samples and water samples, and the testing shows elevated levels of aluminum and another heavy metal. I can't remember at the moment. Not cadmium. I thought it was cadmium, but it's aluminum. And it'll come to me. But aluminum oxide is probably the biggest culprit that is found in our water supplies. Now, aluminum, I've mentioned before in other shows, is really a toxic material, especially when it's been particulated to such a fine degree where it's almost atomized. It's very aggressive when it is breathed into your sinuses. It bores right through the brain-blood barrier, and the aluminum tends to deposit itself right into the very centers of your brain that are all about memory. This is really quite an unnerving thing to really grasp just how important our memory is, from short-term memory, long-term memory. So much of our daily function has to do with simply remembering how to do something, and if we are all slowly and steadily being contaminated with aluminum in our brains, we suffer like a slow, insidious dementia of sorts. And it's been called Alzheimer's, it's been called dementia. There's a variety of affectations associated with heavy metals, aluminum specifically, and to tell us, whatever that authority structure is, scientists, well-paid ones, or CIA, or even our political leaders. Take Bernie Sanders, for example, who is signed on lock, stock, and barrel with the global warming agenda. Calls into question even, I like Bernie. He says a lot of good stuff, but when it comes to quote-unquote climate change, the man really kind of fails me, because he's not critically looking. He is just buying into the meme that overwhelming numbers of scientists agree that man-made climate change is what's really going on, and it all has to do with carbon dioxide, and he includes methane, or actually just carbon. He just said carbon and methane, and that's not correct either, because carbon by itself is not a gas. It's actually, carbon is a material that makes humans up. We are carbon-based animals, carbon-based life. Carbon is not the enemy, and neither is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a miracle gas, and without it, plants will not grow and produce oxygen, and then we starve of oxygen and suffocate and die ourselves. So, in this basic kind of ninth grade textbook earth science piece of information, we are all being conditioned to believe that carbon dioxide is this, evil substance, when it is not. Now, that's not saying that air pollution doesn't happen. It does happen, but it's more along the lines of particulates that are associated with industry and the burning of coal and various other mined products, oil and coal, largely the most of it. And you get in the ash and in the smoke. Smoke is mostly water vapor, by the way. You can get sulfur dioxide, you can get mercury, you can get lead, you can get whatever has been mined with the fuel as part of the particulate in the smoke. That is a problem, and the Clean Air Act of the 70s, as I said in an earlier show, almost has been an accidental success, with all the effort to counter its good effects. The air had gotten cleaner, and now there are chemtrailing really every day. I can't really recall a complete full 24-hour period in 10 years now where I haven't spotted at least one chemtrail. And in some days, the chemtrailing is so pervasive, it occludes the sky. You have an artificial cloud deck is developed as these chemical trails go spreading out. So why I'm going on and on about this? Well, what I'm talking about is the weaponization of our atmosphere. I'm talking about the weaponization of our police and various government I don't want to say associations. What do I want to say? Government agencies. Yeah. That, we the people have a thing called the Constitution, and in the Constitution, it is a document that is a contract. It's a business contract in a big way. And the business is between we the people, the humans, and the agency that governs. And that governance or government is populated with people who frequently are compromised morally and ethically. The word is corruption, but when you are an individual that has attained an elected position where you have a great deal of influence and power in your decision making, you are also then approached by very, very powerful lobbies who represent the moneyed interests to get policies passed through our legislative branches that are beneficial to various corporations or very wealthy individuals or this kind of thing. So the Constitution was engineered by very smart guys, in the 1760s and 70s and 1780s, and to really protect the people from government. It is to govern the government. That's what the Constitution is really about. It is about protecting our rights. It is about protecting the human beings from the tyranny of those who are in positions of representative power, because it is we have a republic. It's a representative government. And I asked a good friend of mine, Joe Barton. I asked him. I said, "Well, what's democracy mean?" I thought it meant like demos or something about ruling by groups of 10 or something. He goes, "No, it's mob rule."
You didn't know that?
And I didn't know that viscerally. Oh, and I forgot to thank. Yeah. Yeah, Demokritos, mob rule.
It's always preceded by fascism.
I didn't know that. Yeah, so democracy is preceded by fascism, mob rule. Anyway,
It precedes fascism.
or precedes, there you go, it precedes fascism. Anyway, so language is powerful, and unless you really know what a word means, we are at a disadvantage because we use these words thinking it means one thing when in fact it means another. And though our direction and thought is perhaps a good one or a positive one, if we're using incorrect language, subconsciously another message is delivered to the person that you're talking to. And this is a basic principle of advertising, really, as well as a lot of other kinds of language that we are subjected to bring us to one kind of understanding when in fact it's a different one. It's deceptive. It's deception. So these 4 Indian guys here with their shooting irons and their posture, they were in defense of their people. They're in defense of the people. and then by extension all the way to today, some, a couple centuries later, they're still protecting us because it's a consciousness. And that consciousness is that we have the right to bear arms. It's a constitutional right, and organize ourselves to protect ourselves from tyranny, from the government. And when, I hear about a proposal in town to require locks on guns, among other anti-gun rhetoric. Here's a big problem. For one thing, there's a very huge statistic that you might actually get from the National Rifle Association and other sources of people who have properly owned and taken care of their weapons in their own homes and having used them to thwart robbery in their homes. This happens a lot, folks, and we don't hear anything about the success rate of homeowners defending themselves against armed robbery in their own homes. It happens a lot, and we don't get any reporting on that in the mainstream media. You have to go looking for that data. The question becomes, well, that's newsworthy. Why don't we hear about that? Well, what we don't hear about, and what we do hear about, is an interesting contrast. You can't call it journalism anymore unless both sides of a story are presented. When only one side of the story is presented, it ain't journalism. I'm not quite sure what you call it, but it's not journalism. Yellow journalism. I remember that from high school now that you mention it. Gun registration, rifle registration, access to ammunition, all of this kind of thing, as it gets more and more restrictive, then we become more and more vulnerable. And the question becomes, if our government and military and police agencies become obedient to these fascist diktats, and we the people find ourselves the enemy of the state, what do you do? What do we do when our own government is something to be feared? And that's something that I really find repulsive and repugnant, is to live in fear of my government, to live in fear of the military that really should be an honorable thing. Our soldiers, some of them sign up, some of them make careers of it, some of them try to get a college education as a deal out of it, and whatever the impetus is. These guys, I think, for the most part, are doing this for a lot of reasons, but I think most of them have the ideal in mind. The ideal that the United States represents, freedom in the broad stroke sense. And a lot of these military guys, once they get in there and they've been in there for a while, they come out of it thinking very differently. And how do we, the veterans who get, blown up and maimed doing what they're told to do in various theaters of war, they're not getting the kind of either psychological or physical medicinal needs met in a big way. And that's a travesty, for these guys to give their lives and limbs to be treated so poorly when they get home. So that's yet another issue on the side here. But getting more direct, I might be a free thinker, and I might be somebody who likes to plant a garden and play guitar, But I'm an advocate of the Second Amendment and being well armed, not just, the right to bear arms, but the right to be well armed, for all the above reasons. Not only is it a great deterrent and a succinct way of defending one's own family and property, but in the event of tyranny, you have to ask yourself, folks, you have to ask yourselves, do we really want to make it easy? To be rounded up like Armenians were in World War I in Turkey, or like anybody in World War II that opposed the Nazi regime, or in Russia. It was always all of these actions of rounding up the various targeted populations always was preceded by disarmament, gun control. All right, so that's some serious thought needs to be had about that, because this depopulation agenda is real. There is a real another word for the movement is transhumanism, where people who can afford it can pay for the service of having their bodies frozen and their consciousness uploaded to a artificial intelligence platform. Now, that artificial intelligence platform could look like, a box on a desk, or it could look like another human being, but more on the order of a replicant from that great old movie, Blade Runner. An artificial human. An artificial human that can be, slave labor because they're really a machine, right? And that's a great film to revisit if you ever want to really study the issues that we're very, very quickly coming up against. And that is when a machine becomes so human-like, it thinks for itself and has feelings. And has feelings for others of its own kind, which is the theme of Blade Runner. That these replicants, these human-like machines, they eat, they have a kind of blood, their nerve network is, mechanical, but a mirror image of a biological human. And the transhumanist movement is largely about that sort of thing, where, human beings, with our requirements for food and fuel and shelter, we're just using too much stuff, and, we'll either wreck the planet with war, or we're going to wreck the planet by just, mining it too much. We better do something about it and, get rid of most of the humans, and then the ones that are left that can afford it, their consciousness can be, uploaded to these artificial devices or humans, replicants, and live indefinitely. See, that there's this sort of desire to live forever, is sort of wrapped up in this transhumanist idea. It's not a nice idea. So those are some thoughts there to think about and to talk with your family about. But getting back to what they call silent weapons or invisible weapons. I mentioned in at the end of one of my shows a few weeks ago about the cell towers that are proliferating the continent. And this is part of this 5G rollout business. And I kind of ended one of the shows by saying, what we have to ask our town authorities who have to participate without consent of the governed on the local basis. These massive rollout of cell towers can be thwarted because of various rules. One of them is home rule, but another one is simply not giving consent. And the question I posited was, we have to ask, can this new variety of cell tower that will be equipped with devices and antennae that handle frequency ranges that are military quality or military grade. We have to ask, can these cell towers be weaponized? And if so, how would that work? How would that look? What does that look like? And nobody's asking this question. I'm asking the question. And I'm putting it out to you, all of you who might be listening or watching. How do you feel about the idea that microwave frequencies are being targeted for public use, and the range of frequencies that are being broadcast and used, that's a simple word, these new frequency ranges, they're not new, but this specific range of frequency ranges up until very recently were illegal. You couldn't use them because they were known to be toxic. And now, oh no, they're fine. Suddenly, this is a boom or a boon to our economy. This is going to be the biggest infrastructure, development since the WPA days and the highways and the parks and all the stuff that was built in the 1930s and 40s to get people out of the depression and into working employment and such. These cell towers go up overnight, practically. There's not a whole lot of employment once they're built. They don't really, it's not going to give back a whole lot to your community. But they will give an awful lot of microwave radiation. And there's, so much research out there about just exactly how toxic these frequencies and these emissions, these radio broadcasts, radio frequencies are. They accelerate cancer growth. Those of us that use microwave ovens, you can see what it does to when you're reheating a cup of coffee in a minute and 30 seconds, it's piping hot from dead cold. It's a great convenience, but that should give you a small indication of the excitement to the molecules these frequencies, these radio waves accomplish. I brought up the idea that this proliferation of cell towers, this new grade of cell towers, and I was really alarmed by the FCC representative. What was his name?
Who came out? Tom Wheeler.
He's not.
He's not there anymore.
Yeah, it was Tom Wheeler. Came out with a statement in a press conference a few months ago. He's not in anymore. I don't know who the new guy is, but he was very excited and goes on and on about, this broad range of frequencies that are available to use now, and there's this massive, infrastructure rollout, and that you won't be able to go anywhere from the mountaintop to the bottom of the valley, anywhere in the United States, possibly all of North America. I can't remember the quote exactly, but boy, oh boy, you know, does that mean like when I go to my favorite lake in the Adirondacks, that is one of the last pristine places in New York State, I am going to be saturated with microwaves because they are going to do everything. There will be microwave, Wi-Fi everywhere for bunny rabbits, for fish, and people, you know. And this should be alarming to everybody, because what's the point of it? What's the point? What's the point of that much saturation of Wi-Fi energy? I think it's a weapon. It's weaponizing our atmosphere. It's weaponizing radio waves. And the thing is that these can be tuned and focused as well. You can, so that real specific targeting can happen. I just overheard a phone conversation today about a wireless thermostat is now being advertised with telemarketing calls. Was that from Central Hudson?
Yes.
Our pals, Central Hudson, really want us to get involved with 24/7 Wi-Fi so that you can regulate the furnace with a Wi-Fi wireless thermostat. Why? What's the point of that? Well, it can be controlled remotely. When you have any wireless utility, or it's not what I want to say, any wireless device can be hacked wirelessly. So part of this, though, is connected to the smart meter, which the power companies are finding more and more resistance to. But the smart meters are beyond just the power companies. The power companies are really, I think, tools of the political power or the governing powers. And that is that when all of the appliances that are being sold now are Wi-Fi friendly, and you have a smart meter, then the power company will then have access through the smart meter, through the Wi-Fi signals, to access any of your devices in your home that are Wi-Fi connected, wirelessly connected. So some artificial intelligent bureaucratic device somewhere can decide that human XYZ is using too much heat. We're going to turn the thermostat down so that your thermostat will be remotely controlled, because some decision is going to be made somewhere that you're using too much energy. See where this is going, folks?
We don't like his politics.
Or we don't like his politics. Not only that, but you can be monitored, even if your thank you, even if your computer is turned off. And they've been doing this for a long, long time. I love that. I love that. They who? Well, we don't know who they are, but they sure are very busy and monitoring. You know, it's a lot of it is about monitoring us. And that's why, you know, I come on to talk to you, my friends here in Woodstock and in the world, about this stuff in our public access studio, because if I don't talk about it and others like me don't talk about it, we're just going to go rolling along consenting to things that we have no idea the ramifications that will be presented by these technologies and who's using them and how they're using them. You know, connected to this whole thing is vaccines. And I got to tell you a little story. I got a couple stories tonight, to tell you the truth. I got crunchy throat. What was I talking about?
The Wi-Fi's and monitoring us, controlling everything.
Yeah, but I was going somewhere with it.
Well, before you get it, what do you think is the solution? And it'll come back to relaxing the solution.
Well, yeah, relaxing into a solution. We have to study the problem before we can find a solution. I mean, keeping it simple is a really good solution for a lot of reasons. The more complex the system, the more opportunity for failure.
Vaccination is to make us.
And that's the story, thank you. The vaccination thing. That's where I was going. These are all interrelated subjects. Vaccinations, Wi-Fi, chemtrails, nuclear war, smart meters, artificial intelligence being integrated into every aspect of our lives, eventually hybridizing man with machine, and then eventually uploading consciousness to machine and eliminating the carbon-based life form altogether. All right. That's what depopulation is meaning. It's really, really heading that way, folks. And I'm a naturopathic kind of guy, but I, you know, even with as much as I'd like to be, you know, eating roots and berries, you know, I need my teeth fixed. I go to a dentist. There's a lot of technology. You just, you know, in drilling out my teeth and gluing in some ceramic composite material, getting the old mercury lead amalgam out of my mouth that was poisoning me for 30 years, requires technology. And that's, you know, I don't have a whole lot of answers on this point on how to rein in and keep our power structures ethical and moral. You know, I don't really have solutions, but I do say that we should study the problem and we should talk about it and appraise ourselves of it, because, you know, our world is a wonderful world. And getting back to this whole vaccine thing and how it's connected with all of this, you know, I have twins who are in their middle 20s now, and when they were little babies, I fought real hard the school system, state of New York, about my objection to the DPT shot in 1993 was hot. It was harming a lot of children in the country. The MMR shot was hot, and that was harming a lot of children. And the way they bank these shots together now, you can get a bank of immunizations and have as many as, you know, 6 or 12. What's that?
64.
They're up to 64 shots, 64 immunizations. The point that I'm getting to here is that one of my little babies had a bad reaction. Her legs swelled up like a sausage. Very, very high fever. The fever lasted days. This little 18-month-old baby. And her twin, not so much, was okay. And, you know, I really got angry that, you know, I wasn't home when the visiting nurse up in the North Country came by and scared the mother into compliance. Now, when I was trying to, you know, get my daughter, my eldest daughter, into school, they wanted the immunization record. I didn't really have it, and I know she had some, but not the full spread. And I got into a huge fight with this guy, Dr. Musow. And Musow was going on and on about he felt personally responsible for all of these cases of mumps. Was it mumps or measles? That had broken out in this general population of students who had been immunized. All right? But they were blaming these kids all getting sick with measles on unimmunized Quaker kids. So I argued with him. I said, well, wait a minute. You're telling me that immunized children got the disease that they were immunized against from unimmunized kids who didn't get the disease. Is that right? And he goes, yeah. I said, well, I don't understand. What was it? Well, they were carriers. But wait a minute. I thought the kids were immunized weren't supposed to get sick. And so he got so angry, he went off on a tirade that in 20 years or 30 years, there's going to be thousands of immunizations for every conceivable condition, from herpes to cold sores to the common cold.
That person isn't immunized, they're going to get the diseases.
And, well, and what he was saying to me is that the unimmunized people are the real dangerous ones. And I said, well, that flies in the face of the, you know, what I learned, which is that, you know, these immunizations are done with like parts and pieces of the virus that you're being immunized against. You know, like in the case of polio, they use the live attenuated virus to inoculate people so that you actually get a very mild, almost imperceptible case of polio to immunize yourself. But early on, it wasn't that simple. The worst polio outbreak ever in England was because of the new Salk vaccine, the new polio vaccine. They have outlawed it in Great Britain ever since. So they can only use a vaccine that has been made with viruses that have been cooked, that are dead. And it works just fine as far as the immunological response. Not so much in the United States. They still like to use the live stuff here and play Russian roulette with us. But that's besides the point. What I'm saying is it's personal for me with this business of vaccines being dangerous. They are dangerous, and I saw it firsthand with my own kids. And with that huge argument I had with Dr. Musow up there in Glens Falls, New York in 1993, he said I was watching too much Oprah. Well, it was actually, I found out about the hot DPT shot in New York State and the hot MMR shot in New York State from watching 60 Minutes. So I don't know. I don't know when Oprah got on 60 Minutes, but that's, you know, and that I had a problem with authority, and I told him, yeah, I do. I have a problem with authority when authority doesn't take responsibility for the decisions that it makes for us. Because on that document that they wanted me to sign, which was a release form for my kids to get, you know, fresh batches of immunizations through the school nurse, I said no. Not unless you sign as the attending physician, and you take responsibility, because here's a place on this form. I remember it clearly to this day. It was a green page, and it had a lot of legal language on it. And I read all the way through it, and that really pissed him off. He didn't like me taking my time actually reading the document. Like, come on, hurry up, just sign it, stupid. And I said, well, I'm not going to just sign this, I'm going to read it. And then I said, no, I'm not going to sign this. I'll sign it. I tell you what, I made a deal with the doctor. I said, you sign on the X here that says the attendant physician who takes full responsibility for any adverse effects on my child, then I'll sign it. He would not sign it, nor would the school nurse. So I said, well, I'm not signing it. You don't have permission to immunize my kids. So they left the kids in the school anyway, but, it was a big, it was a big fight. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a whole lot better than people who sometimes got their doctors to sign off. That's sneaky. That perpetuates the problem.
Well, it's real interesting when you start using the liability word, how people in positions of responsibility really suddenly become not responsible. They don't want that responsibility as soon as you start holding them to what that really means. And I think that there might be an element to that regarding the Wi-Fi or 5G rollout in Woodstock particularly, because if enough of us question, is this a weapon? What is this? What is, we need to demand information on what the program really is and what it means and what it does and what are the health impacts. If this is creating a health hazard to our general population or even a specific population, the answer has to be no. No, not acceptable. What value do we have as human beings? I don't go along with the idea that humans are bad and that we can solve all of our problems by mass genocide. I think we can have greater sense of purpose and abundance in our world by keeping things simple and keeping things honest, keeping our science honest, keeping our government honest, keeping each other honest. And that's one of the challenges that is before me, up close and personal, is this idea that some of us are more equal than others. Now I only got a couple of minutes left here before I
You don't have more because we started late.
Oh,
You
we-
have 7 minutes.
all right, I got 7 minutes, and this is related to why I'm such a staunch supporter of the Second Amendment, and that not only should we be able to bear arms, but we should also be able to be well supplied with ammunition in our republic here. And kind of drifted off here because somebody walked in the studio. Where was I going?
With contracts, I think that's great. Bring up the liability word, because the only way they get away with this is presumption and contract. Corporate policies don't pertain to us, so we have to illustrate that.
Well,
That's what you did.
You were actually saying keeping the powers that be honest.
yeah. Well, it's also that's kind of a great thing for me to bubble out with, but without substance, we don't even know who the powers that be are. How can we keep them honest? That's another problem.
Well, they're agents. They have agents. The people giving the vaccinations.
Right.
Signs. So.
So, I have a few minutes left here, and I'm going to tell another story. This one's a little bit unrelated, but it's kind of illustrative of a spiritual dimension, and it's actually connected to. It's a Woodstock connected story. This goes back to when I still had a restaurant. This is around 2000. Around 2000. It was before 9/11. And I was still going back and forth. Actually, it was maybe even 1998, 1999. It's before 2000 even. And I was dating a lovely lady named Carol, and we had a restaurant together at a certain point. But I was still had a couple of jobs left here in Woodstock. I didn't finish everything over here, and coming back and forth from Connecticut to Woodstock was very stressful for Carol, and she didn't like it. She wanted me full time, and I was a little put off by that because I like what I do. I liked the jobs that I was getting, and I also like finishing something once I start it. But anyway, this particular night, we both have a dream. And we dream that the Grim Reaper comes to our front door, to Carol's front door. I wasn't living there full time yet, but anyway. But we both had the same dream. And in this dream, our dog and our cat were circling around in the living room, and they were very, the hair, the hackles were up and the hair was up, and they were very disturbed, our two pets. And we hear a knocking on the door, the front door. We open the front door, and we're looking at this 10, 12-foot tall Grim Reaper. I mean, it was right out of the medieval drawings. I mean, it was the sickle and the skeleton in a robe and black and scary. And so I just shut the door. Didn't want to let him in. And we both wake up. And over the course of coffee, as I was always making cappuccino and coffee, and for us in the morning, we discussed this dream. And as we were discussing the dream, we also had a rip-roaring argument about me going to Woodstock to work. She didn't want me to go. And finally, it was just all so very weird. I said, I'm ending this argument right now. I'm staying put. And then she goes, no, go. Leave. Go ahead. And I said, nope, I'm staying. And it was really kind of entertaining on one level. It's like first I'm arguing to leave, and then she tells me, okay, fine, go, and then I'm arguing to stay. And then finally, I said, oh, okay, it's our day off. 2 minutes. So let's watch a movie. So we watch a movie, and it's called Powder, about this albino boy that always attracts lightning. And he's a sort of a gifted, fellow. He's in his early 20s. And he's, just abused by the townspeople, because he's so weird looking, and he's always being struck by lightning, and he has all these lightning rods on his house. And so he's a special guy. And in this one scene, he holds the hand of the sheriff that has just shot a deer and communicates to the dying deer's fear to the sheriff, and he freaks out. Very emotional scene, and we pause the movie right there. Carol goes down to put some soup on the stove, and then I hear, George, could you come down here for a minute? There's somebody in the yard. So I come down, and I see her telling this guy, his name was David Marks, to get out of our yard, to leave her artwork alone. She had these little sculptures she put out in the yard, to leave her stuff alone, and to please leave. And he wouldn't leave. So I say, I'm going to take care of this. And she goes, there's something wrong with this guy. Be careful. All right. Now, don't forget, the Grim Reaper just visited us both in our dream that night, the night before. So I go out there and I